Summertime in Alabama is hot. And I don't just mean regular hot. I mean simmering, sweltering, sizzling hot. That type of relentless, oppressive heat that bears down on the deep south in the summertime in a way that is hard to explain unless you have lived it, but fully explains why we Southerners have such a fascination with hell. As a native Southerner, I've suffered through heat, through insufferable humidity. And suffer we did. I remember as a boy, my mother would take me to the grocery store, and I'd kick off my shoes as soon as we got there and let the gloriously cold tile of the Piggly Wiggly cool my feet, or throw myself into a bin of butterball turkeys and beg them to allow me to absorb some of their frozen goodness to arm me against a scorching Alabama sun. It was just one such summer day in Jacksonville, Alabama. I was a boy of 16 and had fallen in love with a newfound joy called freedom. Freedom for me came in the form of my mother's porcelain white Pontiac J2000. My father was a Pontiac man and had proudly selected this stormtrooper white of a car, complete with sumptuous navy blue velour interior and chrome accents. I can still hear the jangling of the car keys, a sweet tinkling song of liberty as I shook them in my hand. They were etched with the GM logo, the round one to unlock the door, and the square one to start the engine that would take me out into the world beyond. As it turned out, the world beyond was just a few miles out into the country. And there I'd find my friend and my classmate, Carmel. Carmel's world was so different than mine. She lived up a gravel driveway, had dogs that lived outside, and a mother who enjoyed white wine during the day and cool cigarettes all day. My own parents, being of a much narrower Southern Baptist bent, never smoked and rarely drank. Hers was an alien and fascinating world, a world that would find us huddled together in her room, thumbing through Madonna's new picture book, pretty racy by 1988 standards, or cloaking ourselves inside the music of The Cure, which is where people used to take their sadness before they started taking it out on each other. On this summer day, we were headed back into town from her house to cruise aimlessly around the town square, which was actually a circle, and the McDonald's. And this is what constituted fun for us, but this was also nearly 2 decades prior to the introduction of the iPhone. It was one of those oppressive Alabama afternoons. There was no rain in the forecast. But it must have just gotten so hot and so humid that something in the atmosphere just popped and a rain shower appeared and provided a temporary respite for those of us up around the Roy Webb community that afternoon. The Roy Webb Road is one of those country roads, one of those tar and chip aggregate type roads with uneven but smooth stones baked into the blacktop. The type of road that after a rain steamed like a pot boiling on my grandmother's stove and then turned as slick as a politician. Carmel and I rounded one of those curves. The summer rain had just ended, and we were singing along, windows down, singing with Michael Stipe and the sounds of REM rolling along in the cassette deck. The music and the sound of the exhilarating roar of freedom coming from the tires clearly drowned out Coach Langley's admonition from driver's ed. In my head, he had warned us, do all of your braking before you come into the curve. Naturally, I did not. I hit that curb wide open the way any indestructible 16-year-old would. And suddenly that bend in the road leapt right into my windshield. And everything seemed to sort of go silent. My arms locked against the steering wheel. My foot stomped against a feckless brake, and the car spun around, all the way around, and then began to travel sideways. it is difficult to describe the helpless feeling that you have when all you want to do is go forward and everything in your world is moving sideways. And there you are, watching as if in slow motion, unable to stop it, unable to alter its course, unable to stop the awful crush of the passenger door against the light pole that left it in a crumpled, rippled mess, unable to stop the hood from jarring open as it slammed into the electric box on the side of the road, causing smoke and water to hiss and spray wildly from underneath. Unable to believe that in the span of a curve in a country road, in a moment of recklessness, I had taken the J2000 and with it my newfound freedom and all the hours of my parents' tireless climb towards upward mobility, and left it in a mangled white heap on the blacktop. Stunned, I looked to my passenger. Thankfully, we were both still alive, horrified, bruised, but alive. We had survived the impact of the crash, and now I would have to survive the impact of telling my father, my shame and my carelessness exposed like a raw nerve in need of a root canal. We trudged through the muggy air and up the road to the Dempsey's farmhouse on the corner. We knocked. Miss Dempsey answered and ushered us in, offered us some words of comfort and a cool glass of well water, and then she pointed me towards the phone hanging on her kitchen wall. It was a mustard yellow rotary dial phone staring back at me. And I walked over to it, picked up the receiver, and I dialed. 4, click, 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 click. 3, click, click, click. 5, and with the sound of each click, I could feel and hear my demise growing nearer as I was being brought to what was surely the end. "Hello," said my father as he picked up. I braced myself. "Daddy," I said, "I had a wreck." "A wreck," he said. I heard my father's voice jump. "A wreck? Are you okay?" I said, Yes, Dad, I'm okay." "No," he said. "I mean, are you absolutely sure that you're okay?" And I said, "Yes, Daddy, I'm okay. We're okay. But, the car. Mom's car." He said, "Don't worry about the car. Just, where are you? Tell me where you are. I'm on my way to get you." And I slowly began to realize I was being spared death a second time. My father didn't care about the car. He only cared about me. Just me. I should have known. I should have remembered that my father was that same man on reel-to-reel home movies, the camera in the hands of my very pregnant mother as I sat heavy in her belly, 3 weeks overdue, preparing to make my entrance into the world, as usual, late. My father, the newly minted civil engineer, looking younger than I could ever possibly imagine, waving with excitement into the camera. He had just conquered an assembly-required crib and was now ready to take on the challenge of fatherhood. I should have known. I should have remembered this was the man who appeared out of the darkness years later at my backyard birthday party. I'd gathered around with friends in a specially made campfire pit. We were roasting hot dogs. My father, my no-nonsense, calculating father, his face painted marshmallow white, mouth full of plastic fangs, a black cape draped around his shoulders. The engineer, now transformed into Dracula, there to regale me and my friends with ghost stories. My father, reclaiming the joy of his own youth to infuse mine with inspiration and with wonder and with memory. I should have known that this was the man who just a few years later would hand me the keys to yet another car, this time my very own, a blue Dodge Colt with a Mitsubishi engine and a digital speedometer. The two of us stood there in the driveway, locked in a timeless ritual of joy and pride and passage between a father and his son. I should have known that it would be his handwriting on the card that he would send to me just a few years later at college, along with a check for next semester's tuition. His words inscribed read, "Make us proud. You can do it. Roll Tide. Love ya, Dad." I should have known that on the other end of the phone that day was a man who 30 years later would still be here, still cheering me on, still making sure that I'm okay. I should have known that this would be the man who now will not hang up the phone without reminding me, just in case I'd forgotten or in case it will be the last time he'll ever tell me, "Love you." I should have seen instead the man who now stands on his front porch and waves goodbye to me after I leave for a visit, and his arm extends. He sends me back into the world, his fingers positioning themselves into the sign language for "I love you," reminding me that he still believes in me, that he's still proud of me, that he will always love me. And as I drive away, I'm struck with the knowledge that of all the gifts that I've been given in this life, the best and greatest is perhaps that of a father's matchless and undying love. And I guess I should have known.